In the past, we've talked quite a lot about how Stellaris is very much a canvas to write stories on, and that's something that has been explored in various ways, for instance, in Distant Stars with the L cluster, or in Leviathans with the so-called Leviathans. However, when it comes to the particular systems that are in the game, there has been a lack of proper interfaces to set up long, winding chapter events. A good example of this would be the Worm in Waiting scenario, where there is a large amount of events that all lead up to a result that you can then pick from. And it's really a shame that there is not more of that kind of content in the game itself. The Kennedy update, I believe it was 1.5, I want to say, maybe a little bit earlier than that, was probably one of the best examples on what a narrative could look like within the context of Stellaris and building up its own lore base, basically. And of course, the hunters and all that stuff has all led up to that as well. However, coming up in 2.3, the archaeology expansion was something that I already alluded into at Death Dire 144. Yeah, it looks like we're going to be seeing more depth when it comes to narrative, and that is the completely new and upcoming, yet surprisingly similar to Ghoulies Planetary Modifiers' archaeology system. Now, the archaeology system is basically a series of sites that you can discover in space, which then have their own little story and chapterized narrative locked behind it, and that can be in several tiers, or as it is referred to in the Death Diary as chapters. Now, obviously, you will find this in place to survey a planet. You find yourself a frozen complex. Frozen complex, you go and survey it, you send a scientist towards it. Now we finally get use out of that archaeologist trait that scientists have, because in the past you could only really use it on precursors, and go into a series of events where there's a dig site, you go deeper into a complex, there's more events which then lead into more events. Now, how many of these we are going to get is currently not known, but on top of that, it does look like the system is completely moddable, just like with any other system in the game that is at least not hard-coded. And the good thing about this is that this entire archaeology system, from basically day one, is going to have a free mod expansion with Ghoulies Planetary Modifiers. Yeah, it's extremely similar in its setup. We talked about the precursor tech in, I believe it was Death Dire 143, or at least the special resources that you can find to unlock more stuff. And you can most likely find that in these particular Digsites and chapters. Yeah, Gullies already does that. There's quite a lot of interesting overlap here. And as you can see, I'm actually playing Gullies Planetary Modifiers in the background with quite a lot of things going on. And especially when it comes to the precursor events. Now, the 5 different precursor events, for those of you who have been watching the channel for quite some time, you know that the First League is amazing. Now, what if we get a precursor anomaly chain on their capital world and slowly but steadily keep on discovering things on that planet? That way it just continues building that narrative that I personally have been craving, but also in such a way that it's highly moddable and anybody can just slap together a storyline and be like, oh, there be monsters. Oh, I basically have just created a choose-your-own-adventure game within Stellaris itself, with results at every single step. And apparently can go all the way up to 10 steps with some modability in the long term as well, expanding on this. Now, as of right now, this is only currently planned as a standalone system. It may include the precursors. I do hope that it does, but eventually, if the system turns out to be running well, then there's a good chance that a lot more of the vanilla event chains and anomalies are going to be tied into the system, making anomalies more narratively interesting. For instance, there's tons of anomalies out there that are incredibly one pop-up boring events. And having a tree style approach and branching paths and stuff like that, even on some basic events, would make the game so much more, what's the word I'm looking for? fresh and also felt that it's being lived in, or at least that it has stuff actually going on rather than, oh, I just got 3 minerals that are now spawning on this rock. Great. In addition, though, there's some other overlap with Ghoulies planetary modifiers. We talked about habitats last week, and specifically how the habitats are looking to overlap on resources and then getting particular districts. Ghoulies actually has that. So if you build a habitat on top of a planet with minerals, or at least a specific modifier on it, then there's a chance of getting more minerals being produced on said habitat. I'm under the impression that the developers took a very, very strong look at what is out there in terms of mods and cherry-picked some of the best and brightest ideas in terms of narrative, threw their own ideas on top of that. They probably started out with their own ideas and then started cherry-picking as well, and came up with this archaeology system and then built a UI around it, and that's perfectly fine. It's good sourcing from these sort of places. They effectively own them anyway because of the way the EULA works. But yeah, there is so much to be found here, and it's incredibly interesting that we're going to go into what's this phase. Stellaris originally starting off as a paint the galaxy mode game, and now we're starting to get more and more narrative. Only 3 years into the release. That's quite something right there. But yeah, a lot of new narratives coming up, probably with a lot of interactions with traits from your rulers or with your scientists, and basically seeing more things happen within the game itself. Let's take a look what else we have here. Well, like I said in the background, we're playing Ghoulies Planetary Modifiers. If you want to try out what this new expansion could taste like, and have an idea of what gameplay would be like without all the fancy UI stuff, go and download Ghoulies Planetary Modifiers. I do highly recommend it. It is also part of my preferred mods pack that is on the workshop, which I will link down below as well. But specifically Ghoulies, go and download it. It is very heavy on influence when it comes to getting research done and all that stuff, but overall, extremely good. And you should definitely give it a shot. But yeah, Dev Diary 145 on archaeology. Looks like we're going to go full on Indiana Jones in space. A classic case of give me the idol, give me the whip. Until next time, take good care of yourselves. And as always, each other.